we're also more likely to live longer. There's been a lot of research on that, even more so than just being plain happy. So we know something about meaningfulness means something for resilience, but what does it mean for suicide and suicide prevention, and what does it even look like? Now, this woman, Emily Esfahani Smith, has published this wonderful book that came out earlier this year in January called The Power of Meaning. And she surveyed international research, and she talked with clinicians and scientists and community and cultural leaders. She talked with people who were just having really inspiring, awesome lives, and she came up with these 4 pillars of meaning. Now, I only have time to go over just a couple of them. The first one, you may recognize, belonging. Now, that's the place where we feel valued among our people, where we matter, where we're appreciated, where we can give and receive affection with some reliability. And it's our tribe. And those of us who do not have a tribe or have lost a tribe, we know are at higher risk of suicide. Some of our greatest theorists in the field, from Emil Durkheim to Thomas Joyner, note the word belongingness have a relationship to suicidality. It's also why in adolescence, where we're most likely to ask those big questions, who am I? Where do I belong? Who do I matter to? That's also the period of life where we're most likely to want to kill ourselves. And it's also why the warning signs of suicide just happen to describe most every middle schooler I know at one point or another. But it's also why peer supports, the idea of peer supports holds so much promise. The idea that we would have somebody who's like-minded and like-experienced, who could sit with us and talk with us and say, you matter, you still belong. Dorothy, meet Alice. Alice, meet Dorothy. Hillary Clinton is going to be joining this peer support group. Now, there's the second pillar of meaning that Smith talks about is a sense of purpose. Now, the research talks about 3 different types of components that make up purpose. The first one is it has to be a long-term goal, not a short-term goal, which means it doesn't mean I want to graduate from college. It means I want to be a doctor. And the second component is it has to be a contribution to society, making the world a better place in some way. So I don't want to just be a doctor. I want to be a psychologist that helps a lot of people. The third component is it has to spring from a true sense of self, what you were meant to do. I want to be a psychologist because there was mental illness in my family and I saw that suffering and I want other people to avoid that suffering. But a loss of purpose and not having that does put people at risk of suicidality. Here's an example of that. So I just failed my test. That means I'm not going to graduate, which means I'm not going to become a doctor. I'm not going to be a psychologist. I'm not going to be able to help people. What good am I going to be to anyone? And to that person, I have one word: plastics. Now, for those of you who don't know the graduate reference, you might recognize this one. A lot of people looking for a sense of purpose and belongingness may turn to the armed forces. And we also know that this is an area where the number of people are at risk. So let's talk about purposefulness and belongingness in this respect. I know we've heard from a lot of soldiers who will tell you that their bunkmates and bunker mates have such a real connection with them that it is the difference between life and death for them. And that when they're on the battlefield, they're not defending our country. They're defending their buddy. And I heard another veteran tell me this story, which I love. He said when his commander was discharging their platoon back to civilian life, he said, "You know what PTSD is?" I'll tell you what PTSD. PTSD is finding out that you're never going to be as awesome as you are right now. But that sense of loss of your buddies and that awesomeness going back can be a huge vacuum. Craig Bryan and his folks from the University of Utah did this fantastic study on soldiers and asked this question: what keeps them from wanting to kill themselves? What allows them to be resilient? And what he found is it was a form of existential spirituality. Not religiosity, but basically having a sense of purpose. That I may be doing terrible things, but no, I'm not terrible. Because I'm doing it for a reason. And that's the story they can tell themselves. That can keep them from being suicidal. Now, storytelling is actually the next pillar that I'm not going to have time to talk about, unfortunately. No stories about this, but I will tell you, it's really about assembling the random fragments of our experience in life and turning them into a coherent narrative that enables us to see where we've been, where we are now, and where we're going. It gives us some sense of meaning in who we are. The fourth pillar of meaning is transcendence, and transcendence is really about being able to connect with something larger than yourself. So you may feel small, but so do your troubles. And that connecting to this phenomenon that allows one of these experiences, that allow you to transcend these dark moments, can pull you right out, as we know, being in the wind tunnel of suicidal experience, that can make a difference. So these are all protective factors, right? They're also prospective factors. Protective factors to the extent that they are